Previously on Podcast Without Pretense.
Y'all, I think I need to talk to you about my caffeine addiction problem.
So I've been looking into this whole square root thing, and some idiots keep showing me and sending me pictures of trees with square roots, and that's not really helpful at all, but we'll get to this math thing later, okay? I know it's really, really difficult and weird.
They said you couldn't build an extension on the house because there's another floor above with another apartment, but I'm trying anyway. We'll see how it goes.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Strickland.
I am Aya Zakhtar.
I'm Eric Sandine.
And together we can steal routines from comedian Stephen Wright, who once said, "I'm having a skylight put in my apartment. The people who live upstairs are furious."
I think it's a little different there.
No,
Stephen
it's
Wright's
exactly
clever.
the same. It's just using slightly different wording, but that's fine. Listen, I steal jokes all the time. I'm not really criticizing. I'm just glad I'm not the only one.
To be fair, I don't know when the last time I saw Stephen Wright was. So
it's been a while for me. It's been some years.
Must be rooting in the back of your head somewhere.
How are you guys been?
Pretty good. How about you, Eric? Are we're like on a huge delay today, or what?
What's up?
Okay, I think we're on a delay today. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. Yeah. We were asking you, Eric, how you've been.
I mean, yes, I'm good.
Oh my God.
There we go. I'm caught back up. No? Still delayed? Yeah.
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, I can't tell if it's just you being you or if this is legit a delay.
Possible.
Eric, you always seem like you're a little not slow, that's the wrong word, but very deliberate in your delivery. And so therefore it is impossible for me to tell when you're legitimately lagging behind or you're just taking your goddamn sweet ass time to respond to something. But no, that's fair. Did you guys have a good Halloween?
Yes, I had a great Halloween. I got to go trick-or-treating with my son, dressed as the Joker family again. Got a new costume. Very excited about that. Actually had to learn to use a sewing machine to make Joker Jr.'s shorts, which not as easy as it sounds. These are like mini sewing machines, and the instructions are 2 pages, and it's not very helpful. I had to watch so many YouTube videos to figure out how to do this, and the foot pedal was a piece of shit. It's very difficult. We have to hit a button and then try to sew. So it turned out pretty good. My sewing skills are not very good, but considering it looks like the Joker did the sewing job, I guess he could be a little shitty at it. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah. So how about you, Mr. Sandine?
I mean, I didn't do anything. We watched season 1 of Stranger Things, so finally caught up on that kind of.
For season 1.
Season 1?
Yeah. But that's about it. I mean,
season 2 just came out.
I know. Well, that's why I had to watch season 1, because everybody's talking about season 2. So I at least have to have some frame of reference.
Yeah. I haven't started season 2 yet. And so what did you think about the teacher in season 1? The science teacher? The one that the kids all
right?
Yeah. So that guy, the guy who plays him is Randy Havens, and was one of my improv teachers several years ago. He's an Atlanta dude. Yeah, nice guy. Tends to play real assholes in improv, which is why I thought it was hilarious in Stranger Things that he played a very sincere, earnest guy. Because in all the improv shows I saw, he would always come across as this weird kind of nerdy bully character. Like he was clearly nerdy, but he was also just an asshole to everybody. So, well, that's cool. I'm glad you guys. Well, it sounds like you had a fairly low key Halloween. I ended up dressing up and was ready to hand out candy, but we didn't get a single trick or treater here at the house. I was downstairs with all the candy and stuff for 3 hours, and nobody came by. So we're bringing all the candy to our offices at work and just distributing candy there since no one came to get it here. But I did get a chance to use rigid collodion for the first time, which is a type of makeup effect. It makes your skin kind of pucker up so you can make like scarring effects. And I wanted to try it out because I'm thinking about doing that for my character for the Renaissance Festival. I'm playing a different character this next year, and I'm thinking about doing an eye patch and a scar. So I was trying that out, and it was a great success. So at least the night wasn't a total loss.
And now you have candy for all. You sent us none of it.
Well, no, I did not. We even made up bags of like different types. They were all fun size candies except for the Reese's peanut butter cups. Those were full size, but everything else was fun size. But I put one of each in little individual bags, so kids would have made out like bandits at our place. Plus, I had bags of little toys, like Halloween toys, that we got for kids who might have allergies. And I was like, well, we've got like 3 times as many toys as we have candy. I'm going to give them candy and toys. No one came by. And I'm like, you kids would have loved our house.
So that means anybody who's watching this,
come by Jonathan's house, ring the doorbell, and get some candy.
Well, yeah,
I was going to say,
gear up for next year.
I suspect that the only way I would have been able to have trick-or-treaters come by, I'm guessing that Nextdoor, the app Nextdoor, that people are using that to register their houses for trick-or-treating. But I stopped using Nextdoor. Yeah, I stopped using it because in my neighborhood, Nextdoor is actually we're scared white people, and we saw a black guy walking down the street app. And I found that to be very offensive, so I stopped using it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just down here.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about using Nextdoor in Manhattan, but then I was like, I really don't want to know anybody, so fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I signed up when I moved to my new place in like downtown Oakland, and immediately, like there were so many people posting at once that I was just like, oh, this is roughly useless now. Like, I don't care. I don't care about any of these things.
I only would log in briefly when I would, like, if I saw a dog running around the neighborhood, like outside of a yard or off a leash, I would take a picture and I would log in and send that up there just in case someone was missing their dog, because I own a dog. If my dog went missing, I would be beside myself. So I do that, but that's about it. Because otherwise I just, like I said, I mean, it really is distressing how many times I see people posting about suspicious people, which almost always turns into just people who aren't white. It's very upsetting to see that over and over, and I don't want to. So I haven't been using it. But apart from that, Halloween was fine. It was just very low key, quiet, and then I didn't even watch any horror movies. So I did watch a movie that Eric picked for us.
Oh, that was bad. I wouldn't have watched it.
I wish I hadn't. I almost, you know what? Knowing that you, Eric, had watched it, and knowing that Ayaz had watched it and was ready to talk about it last week when we didn't record. Knowing that you both had seen it, I was so tempted to just skip it this week. But I went ahead and watched it just before we went live. I finished it like maybe 15 minutes before we went live. And so I did see it, and I have some thoughts. Now I don't have the copious amount of notes that our esteemed colleague Ayaz Akhtar has taken.
Yeah, I don't even know how he took like pages of notes, because I got so bored that I just couldn't take notes anymore. Like but in case people are wondering, because we haven't actually said what it is we do.
I once upon a time thought it was a good idea, don't know why, to test our attention spans for bad movies by having us devote our full undivided attention at said bad movies and have no distractions, no second screens, nothing like that present, and just to see how far into a bad movie we can devote our full attention. And at the point when we have decided that that is enough, we can invite as many distractions into the experience as we like, or we can even walk away from the film if we so choose. And there's no winners, there's only losers. but we write down generally what our time was into a film before we started to invite distractions. So with that in mind, I'll go ahead and tell you, I got 6 minutes into this movie. And I know it was 6 minutes because it was said, I said I got approximately 6 minutes into this film, which was long enough to hit the first animated transition when I decided to stop and open up a second screen for the purposes of note taking. So 6 minutes for me. What about you guys?
17:42.
Okay.
13:30. Yeah. I just made it the fastest.
All right.
Or furthest, yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Where do we start on this one?
Yeah, well,
you want to just do a summary of this, or like do high level notes? I can't go through all of this. This is impossible.
I mean, the high level summary is really simple. Like,
yeah. All right, so here's the high level summary. You've got two guys who are working on an app, a game, a shitty looking game at that. Like, they could have at least spent a little bit of money trying to make a game that looked like it was worth playing. Let alone worth stealing. Two guys are working on a game. One of the guys is kind of your typical like jokester jackass character who's supposed to be charming, I think, but to me just came across as annoying. And he's constantly kind of steamrolling his slightly less jackassery friend who's still kind of a jackass, just not as big a jackass. And
also, neither of them are like actual jackasses. Like, they're just kind of, I mean, like, they're jackasses,
they're
but they're not.
They're jackasses. Yeah, they're not assholes, really. They're jackasses.
Like, they're strong enough for you to care about. Like,
yeah. I mean, like, there is a significant amount of time dedicated at the first few minutes of the two characters singing along to the Game of Thrones theme.
Right.
So that'll tell you something, I guess. Anyway, they're working on an app. A big game company, I guess, apparently makes a game that is extremely similar to their own. And so they want to sue said big game company. And then just by happenstance, the protagonist jackass, the more annoying of the two, encounters a beautiful barista at a coffee shop, because of fucking course he does, and discovers to his chagrin that this girl, for whom he has immediately fallen, is dating his lawyer, Keith the lawyer. And then the rest of the movie literally is the protagonist jackass kinda but not really dating his lawyer's girlfriend, feeling conflicted about it, feeling more and more distant to his co-developer of the game, until the barista on her own decides that she doesn't really love the lawyer dude, or isn't ready for what the lawyer dude's life means, leaves him, and then goes to hook up with jackass protagonist guy. Honestly, I felt bad for the lawyer in this.
Yep.
Because he doesn't actually come across until the end of the movie. There's actually a review that I read that says the same thing. Until the end of the movie, he doesn't come across as a bad guy. He's certainly busy because he's a fucking lawyer. But he doesn't seem to be taking his girlfriend for granted. He's still kind of a goofball. You can see that the girl likes the protagonist jackass because he's a total dumbass doofus. But the lawyer's kind of a doofus too. So you figure, all right, she must have been attracted to him because he was a doofus. They got involved.
When we first see the lawyer, my note was, okay, all right, the lawyer is dating cute girl. I don't really want to call him a douche, but I think we're supposed to think he's a douche, but he actually seems like an all right guy. Oh, he invited them to lunch with him. Seems nice.
Yeah,
like
there's nothing.
Point in the movie. Do you dislike it? Like, you're like,
he's on their side. He's on their side. Yeah. If this movie wanted us to not like him, he needed to be a lawyer for the game company, not for them.
Yeah.
Right? He needed to be the lawyer who was representing the game company and saying, you guys don't have a case. You should just drop it, et cetera, et cetera. Instead, he's saying,
and that's why
I'll take on your case.
Like on Twitter, that's like basically why my comment was this is like a Hallmark movie if somebody had never actually, like someone writing a Hallmark movie if you'd never actually seen one before. Because you're like, I think the setup kind of goes like this, but then get it completely wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
like go ahead.
I was going to say that this felt like really a television show, because at the 30-minute mark, I feel like the first episode's over, because it seems like we have a protagonist, we have his buddy friend, we have another goofy friend that they have as well. His name is, I don't know what his name is actually right now, because they get really sloppy with names.
Yeah.
And I have in my notes, like when we get names, like, okay, we get a name, somebody's named Harper at 10 minutes and 50 seconds. Or the guy from Raising Hope, who's the lead, his name is Will. We find that first out. And the nameless dead friend.
From.
Yes, from Raising Hope.
That's why I knew out the entire time. I'm like, I don't really care enough.
But every 30 minutes, it feels like there's a new episode, because we have the guy meeting the girl, and the end of the first 30 minutes. Oh, Keith, our lawyer, is dating Sophie, whose name we don't get until I don't know when. But we'll get that eventually. Let's see. Who's Winston? Oh, Danny. Danny is their friend. We get his name at 38 minutes and 38 seconds. I started actually taking notes about this. Is like my side game.
These are characters, by the way, who show up much earlier in the film. Like there are characters who, Will is in the movie for a while, like almost 20 minutes before I heard what his name was. In fact, the first character whose name I remembered was an incidental character named Shannon, who ends up being the girl that, is it Harper, you said? Harper's a girlfriend, I guess, or at least the girl he's sleeping with.
I thought Shannon was Sophie for the longest time until somebody directly said Sophie. Because you hear Shannon in like the first 10 minutes, and I'm like, that must be Shannon. Maybe I missed something.
And Sophie's the Shannon love interest of Will.
Right. And also Keith's girlfriend.
Yes.
Right.
There are a couple of other things I want to say. Well, you said television show. My first note after I wrote down how long I got said, this doesn't look like a movie. This looks like a web series. I didn't even think it looked like a TV show. To me, it looked like it was a... No. I understand what you mean, but to me, it looked like a YouTube web series. Like the sequence of them sitting on the couch and watching Game of Thrones and having their little improv moment that went way too long and was not funny. That felt like an episode. The bit where they're standing outside of the club trying to get in, and then they convince everyone to come back to their place and party. That felt like an episode. Like it, to me, didn't even feel like a full television episode in 30 minutes. It felt like 3 10-minute web series episodes. Maybe it's because I watched too many web series. But when I saw it, I was just like, this doesn't feel like a movie at all. This feels like it was a YouTube series that they just strung together all the episodes and made it into a movie. It also had the production value of that.
Well,
all the animation, all the games.
Oh my gosh. At the 30-minute mark, Sophia now has Will's phone number. That's when they like break off. And I'm like, okay, that's, but I didn't actually think of it as a 10-minute show. If I look at it again, which I won't, because I don't have to watch this again. I bet you're right that it does have 10-minute increments, because like you're saying, these sequence of events at the beginning, they could literally just be cut up and be put aside and move on from there, because they're somewhat inconsequential. And the idea of not getting names till 38 minutes in, it makes very little sense from a storytelling perspective, but it's also really dull. That's the thing about this show, about this movie, that, like you guys are saying, the characters aren't, they're not stupid. That's the other thing. There's actually a scene where Will and Harper are sitting at their desks, and their desks face each other, and Harper's being mean, and he's being cold and distant. And the craziest thing happens. Will actually recognizes it. So he's not like a dumb television nerd that doesn't understand social cues. He actually knows his friend, and they talk about it. This has some of this, like, even though it was boring, you actually had really smart characters who were like, oh, you're upset. We should talk about this. Or when the goofy friend says, I wanted to make up a game called Drinking Solitaire. And then the other guy says, that's just called alcoholism. I'm like, okay, that got me to laugh. That's pretty good. There's actually a couple of moments in this movie that got me to laugh out loud. There was one where I think it's Harper. They're over at Game Tech, the big bag Game Tech. Game Tech is the company that steals their game, which, as Jonathan mentioned, looks like a pile of shit. It looks like an interstitial or like a pop-up ad, and you're like, that's shitty. That shouldn't be anything. And it's bring your daughter to work day. So I guess the head of the company has his daughter there, and Harper makes a joke, something about like, are you a mathlete? And she's like, been an mathlete since 6th grade. He goes, high five from mathlete. And he holds it for a couple seconds, and the girl begrudgingly gives him the high five. And that made me laugh because it was like, okay, it's not a sitcom, like a really dumb sitcom. It's like this, it's almost self-aware. Like it knows this is what people would be like.
It's no Fuller House. The girl, I think, gave the most genuine performance in that little segment there. I have here a note. So early in the movie, like at the very beginning, where they're just establishing that these two developers are also good friends and they're slobs. They're sitting on a couch and they're watching Game of Thrones and they're singing nonsense lyrics to Game of Thrones, or really they're just singing Game of Thrones over and over again. As I wrote this down because I think this is the one joke in my notes. It's not a good one, but I wrote it down anyway, which is, oh good, Game of Thrones references. Always a strong move to make references to a more popular, successful property to elevate your own. This episode of Podcast Without Pretense brought to you by The Adventure Zone.
I would like to give some of the code names that I had.
The Adventure Zone one.
So yes, Adventure Zone, good thing. Podcast Without Pretense, best podcast of 2014.com.
Yes.
So, like we mentioned with the names, so I had to come up with code names for each person. Obviously, Will, I thought was Raising Hope guy, so he was RH. Then there was Nameless Developer Friend, who turns out to be Harper. My note says maybe his name is Larry, because their company is called Larry something or other. Nameless Coffee Girl is just obviously NCG, Nameless Coffee Girl for a while. Harper turns out to be NDF. Let's see. The guy who plays Winston on New Girl is Winston from New Girl, who turns out to be Danny. 19 minutes and 48 seconds. Nameless Coffee Girl is Sophie. We have that. I don't know when we get Keith's name, but that does happen at some point. So we've got Sophia, we've got Sophie, we've got actually it's Sophia or Sophie. I can't remember if it's whatever. We got Vanessa. We get her name right away, by the way. This is
Vanessa was the roommate, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Sophia's roommate right away. She's like, "Hi, I'm Vanessa." We're like, "Wow, we've seen the character on screen for like 10 seconds. Know her fucking name. This is just mind blowing." I don't even have a code name for Vanessa, which is excellent. And I think here's another name. At 30, like I said before, 38 minutes and 38 seconds in, this is when we find out Winston's name is Danny. I'm just like, I had to like rewind for some of this shit because I'm like, there's no way it's taking this long. Let's see. There's the clever parts, but yeah, those are the nicknames I had. And Keith, who we get his name really early. Like you're talking about him being dorky. One of the things he loves to do is air guitar, and you can't think he's a douchebag because he even thinks it's stupid. He's not like, "Oh, I really love air guitar." Right. He's not. He's aware that it's dumb. It's almost like the reason why this isn't funny because it's kind of like real life, and the point of real life is not that funny. So you don't have the dumbass characters. The most over the top character maybe is Shannon, where she's constantly texting Harper. Yeah, I was like, what's his name?
Danny's a little over the top too, but yeah, Shannon and Danny would be the two that are the most cartoonish, I think.
Yeah, otherwise though, like the whole movie, Keith is like this nice guy and he has no problems. He's trying to be, he becomes partner in this thing and like he's working really hard. At the end of the movie, he's even bitching out Will. It's like, I took this case for like no money. I've been working with you for 6 months. And every time why I can't be there for my girlfriend, I'm working on your case. It's like, well, shit, this guy is not a, he eventually, the last 10 minutes of the movie turns into like an asshole, but like, it's too little too late. It's too little too late. We haven't seen him be an asshole in the rest of the movie. So it doesn't in any way justify Will's behavior. Like Will is against his better judgment hanging out with Sophie because Will has definitely got a crush on her. She appears to have a crush on him as well. So you also question, like, you know, the fact that she
has feelings towards him, but doesn't say anything to her boyfriend. Like if she's got problems with her boyfriend, she certainly doesn't voice them until the end of the movie, right? Like she doesn't communicate to him of the things that, if we had seen a scene of her communicating to her boyfriend and being dismissed, that would mean that we suddenly have an asshole character, right? Keith would be a jerk, and you'd be like, yeah, I want to see her dump Keith and go to be with Will. But we don't see that till the very end, and it just comes out of nowhere. It's almost like the writer's like, oh shit, we need to make sure that Keith is an asshole so that when Sophie leaves him, she's not a bitch. She's not, a cold-hearted woman just ditching her boyfriend for a guy who's a doofus, right? So the problem is that it's too little too late.
Can we talk about Keith being an asshole? Like what exactly he does to be an asshole? He's got a job in Hong Kong that's going to take him away for months. And she goes, why didn't you tell me ahead of time? He goes, well, I wasn't certain yet. So, perfectly reasonable answer, by the way. Then he goes, well, you could come with me, or I could say no, or we could just do something else. Perfectly reasonable stuff, this guy keeps saying. Then at some point he says something like, she's going to work and she's supposed to pack for Japan, for Hong Kong, my bad. And he says something like, you can get a job at a trendy coffee place there. And she kind of loses it, as if like that. Look, maybe I'm dismissive. Maybe I understand Keith's point of view a little bit, but motherfucker's a partner at a law firm. She's a barista. I think her career is not as big as his. And the idea of him being somewhat dismissive was still, it's not awful. The way he dismissed it was like, you can get another job as a
I feel for her a little bit, because you can extend the being dismissive about a job as being dismissive about a person. Like that extension, that jump it's not a huge leap, right? Saying like,
but he invited her over. He did all this other shit.
Right. But it's like, hey, this is my life. I'm including you in it. That's not the same thing as saying you have a life and I'm acknowledging it. Those are two different things. And I get
the reason for being offended by his comments. However, the funny thing is his comments actually, up until this point, seem unlike him at the end of the film. Because
this moment where he's saying like, oh, you don't even have a real job. Like it's a 180-degree turn from who this guy has been up to this point.
I thought he was so stressed out from just becoming partner, increasing hours. He's got a new place and they got to move, and he's working on something, and she's talking to him about like saying goodbye before she leaves. That guy is stressed the fuck out. So him saying something stupid,
not to mention he keeps finding his girlfriend hanging out with his client.
Yeah,
whom he's doing favors for.
I mean, let's talk about the whole couch situation if we should get into that.
Let's go into the couch situation, the garbage couch situation.
Can I make one little comment before we get into the couch situation? This is more of a general comment about the film, not specific.
Please do.
Scenes or elements. I felt like there were a lot of moments in this movie. I don't know if they were actually improvised, but there were a lot of moments that felt like they were improvised scenes. But to me, it was like the worst kind of improv where you're watching people make shit up, but it's not really going anywhere. Like there's no real progression in the scene. In improv, there's a rule. It's called take the first out. That just means that when the opportunity arises for you to end a scene, you take it, right? Like you have developed a scene, you've got a conclusion in sight, you take that conclusion. You don't add to it, you don't deny it and try and find a new one. This movie felt like it was just refusing to take the first out or even the second or third out. It was like watching an improv scene where they're taking the fifth or sixth out, and it's never as good as it could have been. There's an entire sequence where the two characters, Will and Sophie, are making up a fantasy together, these fantasy character versions of themselves. super long and animated, and it goes nowhere, and it's not funny. It is very realistic, and it sounds like two people who are just making shit up off the top of their head, like, oh yeah, and of course he's a adventurer by night, and by day he's etc. That kind of stuff. Like, or people are just rattling stuff off the top of their heads, which can be charming in person if you are one of the two people in that conversation. Right. But if you're ever watching one of those conversations and you're thinking this is fucking tedious, that's this goddamn movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about a couch.
The couch. Go for it, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much to say about the couch, but the main thing is like a lot. So they hinge a lot of the movie around this couch. Like, we're introduced to it early on, with it being like super comfortable. We figure out that Sophie found it in the trash or whatever. Will is the lawyer, right? Oh.
No, Keith is a lawyer.
No,
Keith, right?
Is the lawyer. Will is the character, the protagonist.
Keith doesn't like it because it was found in the trash. Keith gets his new job. He's getting his new apartment. He tells Sophie, oh, I'm going to buy you a new couch. Movers are going to come and move the old one out for you. And she, I don't know, for some reason doesn't want the movers to move it and wants to get rid of it herself. So she invites over Will to move the couch, and they move it down the stairs and end up sleeping on it outside. And that's when the next morning Will is there being like, hey, where's Keith. The couch? What the fuck?
Keith is there.
Or Keith. Yeah, lawyer guy. He's like, hey, I told you the movers were going to move it. And obviously like slightly annoyed by like, what's going on here? Yeah, I just didn't, they hinged like a bunch of this around like this scene, and then it resolved into nothing. Like,
well, I mean,
Sophie
I think
Sophie moves in with
I think
him,
this was supposed
like,
to be was supposed to be our first indication that Keith does not connect with Sophie in the way that Will does, right? That's supposed to be that's what the movie wants us to feel. That's the way the movie wants us to go. It doesn't work properly, but here's what the movie wants us to do. The movie wants to say the couch represents Sophie's life. It represents her personality, and it represents kind of the things that she values, which includes like this weird sort of sense of shabby chic and comfort that Keith totally doesn't get. He's very ambition driven, and so that's not who Sophie. No, I'm being serious. This is the way this movie's trying to make us feel. It's trying to say, look, Sophie belongs with Will because Will's kind of a slob, and Sophie ultimately is kind of a slob. And the two of them fit well together. Keith is not kind of a slob. He doesn't understand this part of Sophie's life at all. He doesn't connect with her at all. He doesn't make an effort to connect with that part of her life. He assumes that his life is superior and that Sophie, therefore, would want to be part of it because he's successful and the stuff he can afford is much more expensive than the stuff she can afford. So therefore it's got to be better. That's the way the movie wants us to feel. The problem is, up until this point in the movie, Keith has not shown any of those qualities. He has not come across as being particularly shallow or consumerist or elitist. None of those qualities have come through in Keith until Act 3 of this movie. So just introducing all those character flaws in Keith at the last little like 20-minute section of the movie to justify the fact that Sophie's going to leave him and then go and be with Will, it just comes across as cheap. Like, they needed to set this up, and it wouldn't have been hard to set this up earlier in the movie. You just have a few scenes where Keith says something callow or
like nasty lines where everybody's just like, "Hey, he's an asshole." All right, well,
instead he's constantly like, hey guys, I'm telling you, this is going to be really difficult. If you want to pursue this lawsuit, it's going to be hard. I'm with you. If you want it, I'll totally do it, but I'm laying it out for you. It's not going to be easy. Like, he's being a decent stand-up motherfucking dude.
Right.
And it's not until the last bit of the movie where he's even at all dismissive towards Sophie. And so it's weird because we don't get any of that indication earlier in the movie, and yet Sophie's like running all over the place with Will to hang out with him. And granted, they're not doing anything physical, but they're certainly connecting on a very deep emotional level, and she never has any sort of conversation with Keith about this. So really, I would argue that Sophie's really the bad guy in this movie.
She is the bad guy.
She is kind of.
She's manipulating Will. She knows what she's doing, and Will is like.
We get foreshadowing of this. Danny says all of this to Will. He says it all to her, and as a joke, he's saying it to her after he has that thing about drinking alone, like the alcoholism. He says, girls with boyfriends, here's what they're doing, and then the rest of the movie plays out that way.
So Danny's very prescient.
Anyway, it was insulting the way Danny says it. It's like awful. It's very sexist and misogynist, and yet the rest of the movie plays out exactly the way he said.
All right, there's 2 or 3 things I want to hit before we wrap up on this freaking movie. So this whole case with Keith
trying to escape.
Did you capture your cat?
I did. He didn't escape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have to stop the show. Okay. So this whole thing that Keith is working on is about a video game being copied. Now, Jonathan, you and I have talked about intellectual property in the past, about video games in particular. It's one of the textbook fucking things you learn in IP law. I don't know what kind of law Keith does, but it's not till like way into the movie. He's like, guys, there's a precedent. It's somewhere in like Seattle or something like that. Like Washington. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? This video game stuff happened in the 70s. Okay. It was super important. There's stuff in the 80s too. How do you not know this? So if Keith made Partner, all I can guess is that these writers have no fucking idea about intellectual property law because, we cracked something. It takes us months and hours. This is a fucking 1L grade school fucking case. That pissed me off about this movie. So Keith, as great as you're as an attorney, you're shit from memory. So maybe he didn't take IP. Maybe he was like more into immigration or something. Maybe he never took IP law. But somebody at his firm should have fucking figured that out. Pissed me off to no end. I mean, Jonathan, did that bother you at all?
No, it seriously did bother me. I mean, it reminded me very much. There's and I think I've talked about this on a previous episode, but there's a series of sketches by David Mitchell and Robert Webb on that Mitchell and Webb look where they play these screenwriters, and the screenwriters are just insanely lazy, and they write screenplays about subject matter that they don't really understand. So the joke is that they're always writing these movies where the terms are extremely vague and misused constantly because they never bother to actually research the material. So like there's one that's set in a hospital and people are like, you need to give me the medicine that's different than this kind. Now he's dead from too much electric. Like it's ridiculous dialogue, and it's all because they never bother to actually learn anything. And to me, like, while that's a joke and it's obviously going to the extreme, the way they treat intellectual property law in this movie is almost exactly like what would happen in one of those Mitchell and Webb sketches. It's like, it's not quite that ludicrous, but to sit there and be like, man, I've just been searching the cases for years and years trying to find something where somebody clearly stole the intellectual property of someone else, but man, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah. So there's that. And the last thing I want to hit on this movie, I want to talk about Harper. So we have Will and his relationship with Sophia or Sophie, whatever the fuck. And he's trying to fight the big guys. Harper, apart from this whole dating scheme with Shannon, is one of the most reasonable characters like in any movie ever. He's telling his friend Will the whole time, don't do this. We got to focus on our stuff. This is our lawyer's fiance at some point. Fucking let it go. They talk it over in the car a number of times. He explains that our business is going down the shitter because you are not paying attention to the business. Harper is bizarrely intelligent in this world. Like, everyone's not stupid, but like, it's not like Will is just so, he's in the clouds. He's not paying attention. He's got a friend trying to bring him back down to the real world, saying constantly, you're making a mistake. And Harper is right the entire time. He wants to get a job with Game Tech because Game Tech, the big company that steals, they're like, you guys could be senior developers. It's like, well, maybe we should take that job. Will fucks him over. And then eventually he tries to save him by going over and saying, oh, can you get him a job? But Harper is like systematically trying to move forward in his life. Whereas Will is chasing a dumb dream, which is Even at the end, by the way, Sophie just shows up to Will's place, and then the door closes, and then I'm waiting for episode 4 to drop because it's
well, and like, beyond that, so Harper, he's constantly dicked over by Will because Will has got this stronger personality, and he's the one who dictates what they do, right? He's the one who says, we're gonna stick with this lawsuit. Harper, throughout the entire time, is trying to reason with Will, but he goes along like he's essentially steamrolled, is what I said. But that's pretty much true. He's steamrolled constantly by Will. So there's a point where like multiple characters call Will out on being an idiot and an asshole, and some of them are doing it in nasty ways. And I have a feeling we're supposed to not agree with all of them, but I agreed with all of them because they were right. Like there's a bit where right when Will goes to beg Megatech or whatever, Game Tech for to give Harper a job, like the lawyer at that point essentially calls out Will for dicking over Keith for seeing Sophie behind Keith's back while Keith was trying to do all this work for him. And like everything he says is absolutely true. He is being the Eric is the name of the other lawyer. He is being a total asshole about it, but everything he says is true.
Yeah, but Eric's also mentioning that Will fired Keith. So Keith did all this work and he didn't get to see it through, which is not just dicking him over because of the girl. He dicked him over professionally. And as a lawyer, Eric was just kind of like, or a businessman, it's kind of like, this is shitty. You can't treat people like this in business. And yeah, he's coming off like an asshole, but he's right. You can't do that and get away with it. There's like no comeuppance for Will. He really should have a comeuppance.
And then Will gets the girl.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, that the scene with the lawyer reminds me of the other scene where they go to Game Tech the first time, right? And the little girl's there, right? And the little girl is just there so that they can make a few jokes, right? That's the only reason she's there. And at one point, Keith, like getting tired of the little girl speaking up, just goes, he says something to the extent of like, it's frankly, kind of insulting having her here.
That she's even here for this. Yeah.
And I was like, wait, are we supposed to think Will's an asshole for that? Because I don't, because he's right. Like it's just
Keith,
so many or Keith. Yeah, Keith. Right.
Yes, we are supposed to.
Right.
I think we are supposed to think
that he's there.
But the girl up to that point has been really like, I mean, the girl's a joke anyway, right? She's the whole purpose for the girl to be there is for a joke. She's there to be she's dressed up like a very cold, calculating power, woman. She's like if you take the stereotypical high-powered female executive who has to be 10 times tougher than the men because she's an executive in a man's world. And then you just boil that down to the form factor of a small child. That's the joke, right? So that she's coming across as this kind of cold and powerful executive in training. And then Keith is just like, just having her here while we're trying to have a serious conversation is insulting, which is true. It's, it's like it's showing that you have no regard for the seriousness of this matter. But it's all to make Keith seem like a bad guy, except he's not a bad guy. He's absolutely, first of all, the girl's not really upset because she's flipping him off at the end of it. She's just she's just throwing a tantrum to make him look bad. She has come across as a total jerk ass. The guy who they're talking to in the first place is also an asshole. So there's nothing in that sequence that makes Keith seem like a bad guy. Yeah. Again, like there's nothing, they never establish that Keith is someone who deserves the treatment he gets until the very end of the movie. And by then it's just it's not in character. It's not the character that we've met previously. This movie is not good. It's not funny. No. It's a rom-com that has almost no romance and almost zero comedy.
Right.
There are very long sequences where characters are just saying random shit that doesn't develop into anything. It's just them. It sounds like them riffing off of an idea for a while, but it never really goes anywhere. And none of the characters are compelling enough to make you want to watch it. So like, there's not a strong story, there's no good characters, and it's not funny. So it's just not good. It's like, and then like I said, it's like bad improv. I had a friend ask me like, "Oh, was it so bad it's good?" I'm like, "Have you ever watched a really, really bad improv show and walked out thinking, wow, that was so bad it's good?" And she said, "No." I'm like, there you go. That's this movie.
Anybody else have any closing statements on Glitch?
Eric, stop picking movies like this.
Well, I will credit you for trying something different. So that's a positive.
But we know already. We know that picking, like, I mean, unless it's a comedy where we feel there's legit chance that it could be good, there's no point in picking comedies, because if it's a bad comedy, it's just not good. It's just not funny, right? That's like a bad science fiction film or a bad horror movie or a bad action movie has the capacity to at least be unintentionally funny, but a bad comedy is just miserable.
Yeah.
Though to be fair, Eric, I think when you did pick this and we all looked at it,
save it.
When you picked it, we all looked at it and we thought there's a chance this could potentially be entertaining. So I'm not really gonna give you too much business on this one because there was no way to know. But god damn, it was just a waste of time. I could have been watching Stranger Things season 2.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you probably could have watched. It felt like a 9-hour movie, so you could have watched all. Of
I could have watched at least a couple of episodes of Stranger Things.
I have
season
a note
2.
and here it said 24 minutes in, I grew tired of the movie. I'm just like, how long is this fucking thing? It's only an hour and a half, and it drags. And maybe it is 10 minutes. It's supposed to be only 10 minutes.
I have the same note at 26
episodes.
minutes. 26 minutes in, I stopped caring.
The last 30 minutes of the movie, I took approximately 7 hours to get through. Because when I was watching those last 30 minutes, I got interrupted. My wife called me once, so I paused it. And at that point I was like, God, it must be like 10 minutes left. Because I'd previously looked and saw that there was 30 minutes left. An interminable amount of time went by. My wife calls me. I pause it. I talk to my wife, tell her, yes, I want some iced coffee. Hang up. Go back to watch the movie. 27 minutes left. I'm like, holy shit. Only 3 minutes passed from when I last looked at the clock and when my wife called me. That is bullshit. And it happened at least one other time where I was convinced that the movie must be getting close to over. And I think there were still like 15 minutes left. And then when there were 2 minutes left and the movie actually did end, I was like, wait, that's how this movie ends?
Yep.
It's such an unsatisfying ending too, because all that really happens is that Keith and Sophie have sort of a falling out. It's not even an ugly falling out. It's just like an uncomfortable moment between a couple, which I think a lot of couples would have been able to resolve and move forward on. But she chooses that one to be the time where she's like, nope, this isn't working out. I'm going to go hang out with Will.
The first time we've ever seen Keith be slightly mean.
Yeah.
That was
she's
enough.
Like, well,
one time.
I've only seen Will be a complete idiot. I mean, sure, Keith was a little dismissive to me, but Will was very apologetic when he accidentally dumped rancid garbage all over my body.
So there's also a scene where Will, who has given up on Sophie, goes to their housewarming party and he's drinking a lot. And he's kind of being a dick to Sophie. They're sitting with Vanessa and they're talking a bit. And the weird thing is, you're thinking this is going to escalate. Will's going to be a real asshole. He's going to fuck it up. He's going to be miserable. He just has like 2 shitty exchanges. And then we have the next scene. It's like, no, either you play it all out or you don't. You just don't give us this half-assed, like, I said 2 shitty things to you. See you tomorrow.
Right.
It's like,
and you figured, I figured what was going to end up happening was that he was going to end up, having a physical relationship with Vanessa and the roommate, and that was going to be the thing that really drove a wedge in. But then Vanessa ends up talking to Sophia and she's like, yeah, nothing happened. It was a dud. It didn't work out. Too bad. And I was like, wow, the stakes couldn't be any lower, could they?
And they don't even show us They don't show us the dates or anything. Like it's just
they don't
Vanessa
show you
saying
the party
something.
either. I actually, in my notes, I wrote about how the party at the very beginning of the movie, I'm like, they must not have had any money at all for this film, because instead of showing the party, they show a little bit of animation that represents what the party is. And then it's the next morning when Shannon in a towel is trying to root through their kitchen.
Animation seems like it's more expensive than getting 10 people to show up to fake a party, though.
You would think.
I mean, like, I assume animation is more expensive per minute than extras.
Maybe
but
they only paid maybe they only paid the animators an exposure.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, so we're glitch is over.
Yeah,
it's over.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yep. Yeah,
is it your turn, Ayaz?
I don't know. It might be, but we've talked about. So we've got a scheduling thing right now. We don't know when we'll be on GFQ. We've got Suncast. He's moving. He's our producer. I don't know if that. I think we're gonna be off for a while. So either we'll do audio shows.
Movies to watch.
Yeah. So this. Yeah. Are we actually taking this on because Hallmark is starting their march to Christmas? 33 new movies. New. Because they're all the same movies.
Yeah,
are they available to watch anywhere besides the Hallmark Channel?
No.
It's just, and the only way you can get that is on Sling, it appears.
You're going to need a login of some kind.
I mean, I think I might have the Hallmark Channel on my basic cable package, maybe. So I guess I could try.
Here? Are we each taking on 11?
That's what we talked about before.
So
we're gonna need we need to make a Google Doc with all 33 titles.
Yeah.
And then we need to do draft rounds. And we just each round we each pick a film.
All right.
Until all 33 have been chosen. And we need to figure out a randomly determined way about who goes first. I suggest we roll like a 6-sided die, and like a 1 or 2 is me, a 3 or 4 is Ayaz, and a 5 or 6 is Eric. And then we just roll it, and whichever one lands on first, that person goes first. The other 2, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 through 6. You roll it a second time, that person goes second. The third person goes third, and it's just 1, 2, 3 all the way down.
Or we just alternate. I mean, there's 33 fucking movies.
So the thing is, like, six-sided die. I could send you one.
I've got my eye on like 12 of those movies. I know I can't watch all. Well, I could watch all 12, but I know I'm not going to get all 12. But I want to get at least some of those goddamn movies.
Yeah. See, the thing I'm thinking is like, if I'm doing drafting, I'm like the first 11. Just I don't even care what they are.
No, that's not how it's going to work. We're going to do it turn by turn because that at least that will be interesting. What we'll do is we'll see that Eric and I will be carefully picking out our movies, and Ayaz will just be going down in sequence, like whatever the next available film is on the list.
I know. I think Jonathan's going to have all the Lacey Chabert movies.
Goddamn right, she's hot.
I'll have all the Candace Cameron movies, and Eric will have the rest. I think he's going to end up with.
Eric's like, I got 7 movies with Krampus in it.
Here's the thing: the next time,
dogs, cats, and that's basically what I'm shooting for here. Yeah.
So most likely we're gonna suss it all out, I guess, offline, and we'll figure this out. Yeah. And so the next time we're back on GFQ, we will have some kind of plan in place. Whether we've watched 33 movies or not, I don't know. We might get sick after just 30. Who knows? Maybe we won't even finish the last 3. Which we
I think what we'll have to do, if we can try it. I don't know if I'm not sure how this discussion is going to go. 33 movies is a lot of movies. But because even if we each just took one to explain to the others per episode, that's 11 episodes.
Yeah, but let's do it this way though. If we're going to take notes, they have to fit on one page.
Okay.
Right? So we have a 1-page summary because, like I said, I already summarized all the movies in one tweet, as we all know. It's character doesn't understand Christmas, finds love interest, understands Christmas. The end. That's going to be every fucking movie. We know it. So I think let's limit to a page, maybe even half a page. Just something really small because we don't want to write too much about this.
3x5 index cards. That's it.
I really do want to talk about the idea of a bingo game with this because we got to make it fun somehow. Like, how many movies will actually hit all of these points of? Oh God, it's all gonna be the same movie.
I say that every time a bingo space is marked off, you have to take a shot of eggnog, and we'll all weigh 700 pounds by the end of by January 1st.
All right, so I just realized who Eric would be watching. He's going to watch Danica McKellar. He's got Danica McKellar. That's his designated lead actress.
I like that Eric and I made the same face at the same time. We're both like,
she was Winnie in the Wonder Years. She's also in all of these things. The other actress that's in all these movies.
Isn't
she's
she
not
like
bad.
She's super smart too, right? Wasn't she like a math major or something?
Yeah. Oh, she's like a mathematician. She's written a lot of books on this stuff. She's very, very intelligent. So, but like these are the three actresses that are like in every movie we're going to see. I think.
All right.
There's even one like. So we'll figure this out. So let's go to the next time. Next time on Podcast Without Pretense.
Guys, I finally figured what the true meaning of Christmas is. Blood.
Turns out I didn't even need a page per thing. I just needed like a grain of rice.
Okay. It took about, 10 hours and it's like 400 lines of code, but I figured out how to randomly assign everybody to pick a movie. It's really easy.